hate aimed at Judge Barrett. Email or call and urge your senators to confirm Amy Coney Barrett. Learn more at afa.net.
Let's get ready to rumble!
The mayor of Moscow's wife gave your son $3.5 million. What did he do to deserve it?
Will you shut up, man?
He has no law enforcement.
That's not
support.
true.
Almost
That's
nothing.
Not, look.
Oh, really? Who do you have?
Will you shut up, man?
Have you ever called the Democratic mayor of Portland or the Democratic governor of Oregon and said, hey, you got to stop this?
Will you shut up, man?
Who is on your list, Joe?
Will you shut up, man?
Earlier tonight you said that you are the Democratic Party right now.
If I were running, I know what the plan is.
China ate your lunch, Joe, and no wonder your son goes in and he takes out billions of dollars to manage. He makes millions of dollars.
Lying dog face pony shoulder.
Freedom prospers when religion is vibrant and the rule of law under God is acknowledged.
An informed patriot is what we want.
Welcome to American Family Radio's Focal Point, the home of muscular Christianity on conservative talk radio.
Muscular Christianity.
Where we relentlessly explore the intersection of truth and politics.
The trouble with our liberal friends is not that they're ignorant. It's just that they know so much that isn't so.
Now, here's your host, Brian Fisher.
Howdy, and welcome to a brand new broadcast edition of Focal Point on American Family Radio. Brian Fisher is my name. Program is Focal Point, and I am your congenial, convivial, amiable, and effervescent host.
As always,
Jeff and Rob on board today. The team running at full strength today as we bring content to you. Just a heads up, we're going to take calls starting in the second segment. I want to know what you thought about last night's debate. We're going to talk about it. I will weave some of my observations and sound bites throughout our conversation, but I want to know what you thought about last night's debate. So we're going to take your phone calls starting in the second segment, so be ready for that. I'll give you the phone number before we go to the break. Also want to remind you we have podcasts available at afr.net. You can live stream this program on our Focal Point Facebook page and on our Focal Point YouTube page. Don't forget we have opinion pieces up at afa.net. I've got 2 running this week on Amy Barrett and the Constitution. Encourage you to go there. Another way to communicate with us is at our email address, focalpoint@afa.net. And just a reminder, we have a virtual town hall coming up on October 8th. AFA at Home is where you can get more information. Just go to afa.home. Starts at 7 o'clock. We got Walker Wildman, Tim Barton, the Benham brothers, Abraham Hamilton III, Dr. Richard Landstar Parker, Sandy Rios, all a part of that. Also want to remind you one more thing. You can go to afa.net and you can send a letter. I've done this. Send a letter to your 2 senators about Amy Coney Barrett. And don't not do it because you've got a confirmed Democrat. I've got 2 hardcore Democrat senators in the state I live. Didn't stop me from sending them a letter letting them know what I, as one of their constituents, think about what they should do for Amy Coney Barrett. So be sure and do that. You can go to afa.net, click on the Action Alert button, and the letter, there's a pre-written letter. I added some opening comments of my own, but it's very easy to send. It'll automatically send it to your 2 senators. You don't have to hunt up their email addresses or anything. It'll send it to them, and you can let them know exactly how you feel about the nomination of Amy Coney Barrett. Encourage you to do that today. All right, let's go to the Word of God as we begin the program today. You know, the sons of Israel now are right on the border of the Promised Land. They've gone from Sinai, and inside of 2 years, they got from the departure from Egypt to the Promised Land in less than 2 years. Remember, they wandered around for 40 years in the wilderness. 38 of those years were completely unnecessary. And because of their lack of faith, because of the disobedience, because of their willingness to seize the moment, they wandered around for 38 years completely unnecessary. Kind of like this coronavirus shutdown of our entire economy. Completely unnecessary. But the sons of Israel had to wander because they disobeyed. They didn't accept the challenge. God says, you go into the land and take it, and you can have it. Moses sent Joshua and Caleb in there. They came back out and said, we can do this thing. We can take this land. This is the land that God has promised us. He promised us to give it. And remember what Balaam said. God is not a son of man that he should lie. When he makes a promise, he's going to keep it. But they wouldn't do it. In fear, hesitation, they shrank back from seizing that opportunity, and the rest is history. But now they're back right on the perimeter of the promised land. And here's where Numbers 25 picks up. While Israel lived in Shittim, that was a town right across the Jordan River from Jericho, basically. So they're right there. They're right on the edge. The people of Israel began to whore with the daughters of Moab. That's not my word. That's the English Standard Version. In other words, the point here is that there was rampant, indiscriminate sexual immorality and adultery with believers, indulging in it with unbelievers. And this is what God worked up. These people, verse 2, invited the people to the sacrifices of their gods, and the people ate and bowed down to their gods, these pagan gods of the people of Moab. So Israel yoked himself to Baal of Peor, and the anger of the Lord was kindled against Israel. So what we see here right away is that sexual immorality, listen to me now, sexual immorality is a form of worship to demonic gods. It's a form of idolatrous worship. If you have sex outside the relationship between one man and one woman in marriage, you are worshiping demonic forces. You are giving demonic forces a foothold in your life. You are inviting these demonic spirits into our culture, into our communities. That's why God takes this thing so seriously. So that's why I believe that our public policy must be clear that the only kind of sexual intimacy that we as a culture will embrace, will endorse in our public policy is the union of one man and one woman in marriage. Anything outside of that, we must consider contrary to good public policy. So what we learn from this passage is that sexual misconduct empowers demonic spirits, and this is a danger to our unity as a people. It's a danger to our stability. It's obviously a danger to our health, and it's a danger to our security as a nation. So every sexual act outside of marriage arouses God's displeasure. You look at verse 4, God refers to the fierce anger. And fierce means burning. This made God hot. He was hot about this. His anger was burning against the people. So realize this. It's not a matter of indifference to God, what we as a people, as individuals, or as a nation, it's not a matter of indifference to Him that we learn to exercise sexual self-restraint, that we learn to reserve sex exclusively for marriage, that we maintain sexual fidelity. It's critical to our health as a culture. We cannot expect God's favor on our land if we abandoned sexual restraint. Now here it even got worse. One of the people of Israel, in verse 6, came and brought a Midianite woman to his family in the sight of Moses and in the sight of the whole congregation of Israel. So it's bad enough when adultery is practiced in secret, but it is particularly offensive when it's done brazenly and in public and without any sense of shame. That's where we are as a culture today. There's hardly any disapproval, cultural disapproval, any longer of men who cheat on their wives, on wives who betray their husbands. Maybe they get some rebuke when they get caught, but they don't get pilloried because of what they did. They got pilloried because they weren't smart enough to get away with it. So here's how this plague was stopped. This released a plague into the people of Israel. Here's how it was stopped. Verse 7, when Phinehas, the son of Eleazar, the son of Aaron the priest, saw it, he arose and he left the congregation and he took a spear in his hand and went after the man of Israel into the chamber and pierced both of them, the man of Israel and the woman, through her belly. So Phinehas pinned them both to the ground. Thus the plague on the people of Israel, says the Bible, was stopped. So how did the Lord respond to what Phinehas did here? Did this arouse God's displeasure? Did he say to Phinehas, look, that's not how you go about solving these problems? This is how the Lord responded. Did he rebuke Phinehas? No, he praised him and he blessed him. Verse 11, the Lord said to Moses, Phinehas has turned back my wrath from the people of Israel, in that he was jealous with my jealousy among them, so that I did not consume the people of Israel in my jealousy. Therefore, I give to him my covenant of peace, and it shall be to him and to his descendants after him the covenant of a perpetual priesthood, because he was jealous for his God and made atonement for the people of Israel. So he got a battlefield promotion, an eternal priesthood for him and his descendants, because he was jealous for the honor of God. So what about the application here for us today? Are we supposed to grab spears and start running around and running people that we see committing immorality or adultery, run them through with the spear? Of course we're not to do that. That's not what I'm talking about. That's not the application of this passage. But there are some takeaways that we need to learn from this passage. Part of the problem here was that the men of the community of faith were joining themselves to women who did not belong to God. So I'm talking right now to every single man in this listening audience. I'm talking to every single woman in this listening audience. Keep yourself pure until you get married. Reserve sexual expression exclusively for your relationship with the man or the woman that you marry. Now, God's the God of second chances. If you goof up, repent of that sin and resolve to set your face on a new path. God will forgive, God will restore, but he will not abide flagrant sexual immorality. So don't hook up with anybody. Listen to me now, talking to single people in this audience. Don't hook up with anybody who doesn't love God more than they love you. If he doesn't love God more than he loves you, that's all you need to know. You blow the whistle on that thing right there. You don't let it go one step further. And guys, if she doesn't love God more than she loves you, I don't care how good looking she is, that is the end of the trail right then and right there. Don't fool around with this, because we see here how strongly God feels about these things. So if you want God's blessing on your life, if we want God's blessing on our land, we need to follow him in this. And we see that Phinehas here was the hero of this story because he allowed God to infuse him with God's fierce resistance to sin. And when sin began to creep in to the fellowship of the faithful, into the community in which he lived, he didn't just watch it happen, he did something about it. Now, I don't know what that might look like for you, but one thing we do know is that we cannot sit out this fight. We've got a sword, the sword of the Spirit, which is one of the weapons of our warfare that are powerful in God for the pulling down of demonic strongholds. So let's start using it in our prayers and in our conversations. We can and should be doing this in our churches. When sexual immorality or adultery surfaces in our church family, we need, pastors, I'm talking to you now, and elders, we need to do something about this. We need to deal with this sin in the community of believers as Jesus Christ himself instructs us to do in Matthew 18. Well, let's take these things and go to the Lord in prayer. Lord, I pray today for me, for my family. I pray for this listening audience. I pray for every man, woman, and child in this land. We pray for our mayors, our governors, and our president. And I ask especially for them that they will be protected from the wiles of Satan in matters of sexuality, that they may not be deceived into practicing any kind of sexual immorality. For those among them who are single, I pray that you will cause the spirit of sexual purity to rest on them and to quicken them. For those who are married, I pray that you will release the spirit of faithfulness into each marriage. I ask you to deepen the intimacy between every husband and every wife in body, soul, and spirit. I pray that we will be protected from every spiritual deception of Satan, that we may not participate in any counterfeit religion or religious practice that would cause us to be yoked to any god other than you. May we be both spiritually and sexually pure. This I pray in the name of Jesus. Amen.
For you formed my inward parts.
Are screaming. This is Richard Land.
This is Focal Point with Brian Fisher on American Family Radio.
Howdy, and welcome back to Focal Point on American Family Radio. Brian Fisher is my name, and Focal Point is the home of muscular Christianity on conservative talk radio. Now, what I want to do now is I want to open up the phone lines. I'll give the number. Jeff Reed is going to be taking your calls. Tell him your first name and your city and state. First name, city and state, and then tell him briefly what you want to say. And what we're looking for today is we're looking for your reactions to last night's debate. So this would be for people that actually watched the debate. I want to know what you thought about the debate. And so we'll have a conversation for the rest of the program. I've got some sound bites, some comments of my own to weave through the conversation. But the number to call if you want to participate in our conversation about last night's debate, 888-589-8840. 888-589-8840 is the number to call. Now let's get some sound bites in, start the program, kind of whet your appetite for our conversation. You know that one of the knocks against President Trump last night is that he did not rebuke or condemn white supremacy. And I want to give you one soundbite. You have to listen carefully because both Chris Wallace, who turned out to be a major league homer. He was on Trump's team. This was a tag team deal. Joe Biden and Chris Wallace tag teaming one of the participants in the debate, President Trump. Now, so here is the soundbite of Trump responding to this, and you will hear him twice in this soundbite. It's fairly short, but twice Donald Trump responds to that accusation. Would you be willing to condemn white supremacists? I want you to listen carefully for his answer, because he gives it not once, but he gives it twice. So let's listen. This is clip number 1.
Are you willing tonight to condemn white supremacists and militia groups and to say that they need to stand down and not add to the violence in a number of these cities, as we saw in Kenosha and as we've seen in Portland?
Sure,
Are you
I'm willing
prepared
to do that.
specifically?
He said twice, sure, I'll do that. I will do that. And it's like Chris Wallace never heard him. It's like the media never heard him. And they paid no attention to what he actually said. He said it twice. And they're out there trying to pretend he did not say it even one single time. Now, here's what Donald Trump said back in 2017. Chris Wallace was on Biden's team. It was a tag team. I'm sorry. It was a tag team. Joe Biden and Chris Wallace teaming up to go after Donald Trump. In fact, Chris Wallace last night interrupted Donald Trump 76 times. He interrupted Joe Biden 15 times. So 5 times to 1. He interrupted President Trump 5 times more than he interrupted Joe Biden. Now, here's what President Trump said in August 14 of 2017, and he sent it out as a statement. It still is his position on white supremacist groups. Here's what he says. As I said on Saturday, this is Donald Trump speaking, and anybody in the media that's not squared away on this, here is Donald Trump's position on this. He's never changed his mind. He's repeated himself ad nauseum on this. He's rebuked the KKK. He's rebuked David Duke, who was a white supremacist. Here's what Donald Trump said, August 14, 2017. As I said on Saturday, we condemn in the strongest possible terms this display of hatred, bigotry, and violence. It has no place in America. Remember, when Donald Trump said there are fine people on both sides, he was talking exclusively about the people that were debating over that statue of Robert E. Lee. Should it stay in place or should it be taken down? That's all Trump was talking about. There are fine people on both sides of the debate about Confederate statues. He wasn't talking about the white supremacist groups. In fact, he condemned them at Charlottesville. He condemned them in his reply to what was going on. And again, they just conveniently pretend that that didn't happen. As I have said many times before, Donald Trump says, no matter the color of our skin, we all live under the same laws. We all salute the same great flag. We are all made by the same almighty God. We must love each other. We must show affection for each other and unite together in condemnation of hatred, bigotry, and violence. We must rediscover the bonds of love and loyalty that bring us together as Americans. Remember, we're listening now to Donald Trump. This is the guy that everybody is out there saying he supports white supremacy. He doesn't condemn racism. Here's what Donald Trump goes on to say. Racism is evil, and those who cause violence in its name are criminals and thugs, including, listen to this, including the KKK, neo-Nazis, white supremacists, and other hate groups that are repugnant to everything we hold dear as Americans. So that's your Fisher factoid of the day. Donald Trump unambiguously, unmistakably condemned racism and racist. He condemned unmistakably, unambiguously the KKK, neo-Nazis, and white supremacists. He goes on, we are a nation founded on the truth that all of us are created equal. We are equal in the eyes of our Creator. We are equal under the law, and we are equal under our Constitution. Those who spread violence in the name of bigotry strike at the very core of America. So that's the guy that the media, including Chris Wallace, are trying to demonize as a white supremacist and as a racist. Now, one more soundbite, and then we'll start going to the phone. Clip number 2. Here is Donald Trump responding to Chris Wallace, who's obviously batting for the other side. In fact,
you have never in these 4 years come up with a plan, a comprehensive plan to replace Obamacare.
Of course I have.
Well,
I got rid of the individual mandate.
I'm going to give you an opportunity.
I got rid of the individual mandate, which was a big chunk of
Obamacare.
That is absolutely a big thing. That was the worst part of Obamacare.
Sir,
Chris, that was the worst part of
me.
Obama.
Let me ask my question.
Well, I'll ask Joe. The individual mandate was the most unpopular aspect of Obamacare. I got rid of it.
I'd like
and we will protect people with
President, I'm the moderator of this debate, and I would like you to let me ask my question, and then you can answer your question.
I'm the moderator.
First of all, I guess I'm
shut up
debating
and
you,
sit
not
down.
him, but that's okay. I'm not surprised. Let me just tell you something. That
I'm debating you and not him, Trump says. I'm not debating Biden here. I'm debating you. And that turned out to be a true fact. He interrupted Trump 76 times and interrupted Biden just 15. And he wouldn't even let Trump give his response, give his answer to the question. Talked over him through the whole response that President Trump made. You know, one of the things that was sort of sad about the debate last night is the total lack of respect for the office of the presidency on the part of Chris Wallace and on the part of Joe Biden. You know, as Jeff included in the intro today, repeatedly, well, he included it repeatedly, but what Joe Biden said in the debate is, shut up, man. He's talking to the president of the United States. He's talking to his president, and he says, shut up, man. So total loss of respect for the presidency here. And by the way, I think they got to change the format on this deal. We'll talk about it more. I'm sure some of you have questions about this, but we've got to change the format on this. This was just a cage fight. This was like the Jerry Springer show. And by the way, Joe Biden was wearing a wire. You can see pictures of it online. Joe Biden was wearing a wire. Now we know why, when President Trump proposed that we have everybody check for earpieces before the debate starts, Joe Biden would not do it. Initially, he said he would, but then he changed his mind, would not do it. You can see the wire peeking out of the right lapel of his sport coat, and you can see something on his right wrist, you know, like the Secret Service people have. So he was wearing a wire the whole time. So he was being coached. He was being helped by whoever was on the other end of that connection. You know, you ask yourself the question, who lost this debate? It's very simple. Chris Wallace lost this debate. He looked like a goofball. He was overmatched. He couldn't maintain control. He was given a terrible format to work with, so I don't fault him for that. But he was not up to the challenge of managing a debate of this magnitude. Lost a lot of street cred, I think. All right, let's go to Edith in Florida. Edith in Florida, talk to me. What's on your mind?
Hi, Brian.
Hey.
I just wanted to remind everyone that Washington has been trying to shut Trump up since day one, and I was glad that Biden admitted it, and I was glad that Wallace couldn't do it. I think we need to pray that no one ever does, and I hope they do wear their shut up man T-shirts just to remind us that they love to live in the dark.
That's a good idea. Thanks, Edith. I had some T-shirts out there with the slogan on it, shut up, man, showing Joe Biden's conduct in a debate and his attitude toward the presidency. All right, thank you very much, Edith. I appreciate this. Let's go to Ronald in Columbus, Mississippi. Ronald, welcome. What's on your mind? Talk to me.
Yeah, I just wanted to let you know how bad I felt last night about that liberal debate. And I'm a disabled veteran, and you can't imagine what we went through under Obama and Biden and Trump's choice program and all. We got the best medical in the world. I lost a lot of friends that died waiting on operations. And he when he won last year, I pushed to get him voted in, and again this time because it's just so much better. And I just, I'm a devout Christian. I love God, and I believe him in my Bible, my God. And he's done more than any other president since I was old enough to know better.
All right, Ronald, listen, thank you very much for that. I think the approval rating, the Veterans Administration was in horrible shape. We used to do stories on this program about how abysmal the VA was, the whole healthcare system for vets. Well, Donald Trump loves America, loves the military, and he loves the veterans. And the approval rating now for the VA right now among veterans is about 91%. So Donald Trump in 3 years has turned that thing around from a swamp, an abysmal place where veterans were an afterthought at best, and now they're getting good, solid care, and our last caller bears witness to that. All right, let's go to David in Tyler, Texas. David, welcome. What's on your mind? Talk to me.
Hey, Brian, I think the only person that Donald Trump interrupted was the Chris Wallace, Joe Biden ticket promoting the Democratic agenda. And, I thought about when Jesus asked people, who did you go out to the desert to see when he was talking about John the Baptist? We know that Trump's going to show up and fight for us. And the only people he interrupted were the Democrat Party. Thank you, Brian.
All right. You're welcome. Thank you very much for the call, David. I appreciate that. And, Rob, I want to go back and replay clip number 2 because I cut off the president before this soundbite was finished running. So here's Donald Trump interacting with Chris Wallace, clip number 2.
You have never in these 4 years come up with a plan, a comprehensive plan to replace Obamacare.
Of course I have.
Well,
I got rid of the individual mandate.
I'm going to give you an opportunity.
I got rid of the individual mandate, which was a big chunk of Obamacare. That is absolutely a big thing. That was the worst part of Obamacare.
Sir,
Chris, that was the worst part of
me.
Obama.
Let me ask my question.
Well, I'll ask Joe. The individual mandate was the most unpopular aspect of Obamacare. I got rid of it.
I'd like
and we will protect people with
President, I'm the moderator of this debate, and I would like you to let me ask my question, and then you can answer your question.
Well, first of all, I guess I'm debating you, not him, but that's okay. I'm not surprised. Let me just tell you something.
Not surprised, because that's how the mainstream media, the talking snake media, including, ladies and gentlemen, Chris Wallace. If there was any doubt about which side of the fence Chris Wallace lands on, it's the side of regressives. He's on their team. He is batting for the other team. He's wearing a blue jersey. So that is Chris Wallace for you. And Trump correctly says, look, I'm debating you, I guess, and not Joe Biden. All right, let's go to Peter in Georgia. Peter in Georgia, talk to me. What's on your mind? Well, hang on a sec.
Hey,
there we
Brian.
go. Peter, talk to me.
Hey, Brian, great job as always. Thank you for your great work.
Thank you, sir.
And AFA. And, yeah, thank you, man. And thank you for setting the record straight. There's so many really great points, especially about the respecting the office of the president. I thought it was just, it's the D word, deplorable, the way Joe Biden was talking to President Trump. It's just mind-boggling. The rude arrogance of that guy. And, the only thing I just want to say in a broad sense was I was at a party last night, Trump supporters, there with a couple of others. And, the one thing is that the way it come across, I didn't think it was a great night. I got to say that. It was not a great night. I went down to Jacksonville and saw the president a week ago, and that was phenomenal. I mean, it was amazing. Yeah, it's just a beautiful. I'm going to tell you what, everybody out there, if you can go to Trump rally, get there. You'll forever be glad you did. It's just one, and plan now to go to the Right to Life March in January. Plan now to go there. You'll be there as at the beginning of the second term, and you will just love it. 1 million people last year. Everybody, it was just mind-boggling how cute it was.
All right, Peter, listen, thank you. I think we got a patchy connection there, so I'm going to let you go. But thank you for the call. I appreciate that. And, some people were saying, well, Trump was just a bully, and that's what was revealed last night. Well, it revealed something about Joe Biden, too. We'll be right back. Stay with us going into the last segment, so hang tight. We're not going anywhere. We don't want you to go anywhere either. We will be back shortly. You know, it's clear who the alpha male was in the room last night. Very clear who that was. And ask yourself one question. If you're looking at Donald Trump and Joe Biden, which of those two guys would you rather have standing up against the bad guys?
News with a Christian perspective. American Family News.
Steve Jordahl reports.
Dan Gaynor of Media Research Center says
CNN.
Visit cchfreedom.org. That's cchfreedom.org.
American Family Radio. You're listening to Focal Point with Brian Fisher.
Howdy and welcome back to Focal Point, the home of the fastest 60 minutes in American media. The home of the fastest 60 minutes in American media. All right, well, let's get back to our content here. Let's go to clip number 3. And the reason I want you to listen to this is partly because of Trump's answer, but partly because it shows you the kind of debate that Trump was prepared to have. In other words, this is why I think we need to change the format. You know, I've participated in a number of public debates. I've given testimony before state legislatures, and you always have a timer on you. And when you got 30 seconds left in your allotted time, you get a yellow light that lets you know you got 30 seconds or whatever to wrap up. And then there's a red light, and if you don't cut yourself off in 5 seconds, so they just cut your mic off. We need to do that with these presidential debates. Have a moderator who doesn't do anything but ask the questions, start the timer, and get out of the way. None of this pontificating, none of this interfering, none of this challenging, none of this talking over that we got from Chris Wallace last night. That was a joke, and a lot of it is on Chris Wallace, and a lot of it is on those who put together that format. You know, that Commission on Presidential Debates, they've been around for 40 years. They're all geriatrics. They're doing debates the way they used to do them in the 60s. You can't do it. You got to get with the program. The moderator, his job is to welcome everybody, to ask the question, and then get out of the way. And when the time is up, then he throws the baton to the opponent, starts the timer, gets out of the way. Then they each. Now here's what Donald Trump, here's the kind of debate that Donald Trump was prepared to have when he's asked a question about the criticism that he's trying to jam Amy Coney Barrett through Congress and onto the Supreme Court. Clip 3.
I will tell you very simply, we won the election. Elections have consequences. We have the Senate, we have the White House, and we have a phenomenal nominee, respected by all, top academic, good in every way, In fact, some of her biggest endorsers are very liberal people from Notre Dame and other places. So I think she's going to be fantastic. We have plenty of time, even if we did it after the election itself. I have a lot of time after the election, as you know. So I think that she will be outstanding. She's going to be as good as anybody that has served on that court.
So Donald Trump is perfectly capable, if he's treated decently, if he doesn't have the moderator taking sides in the debate, Donald Trump can engage in a perfectly controlled debate. But when people are lying to his face and they're cheating him in the debate by having the moderator take sides, that's going to tick him off. And he is not going to take that lying down. He is going to defend himself, and that's what he did. And that's one of the reasons why law enforcement loves him, and they don't care for Joe Biden. Let's go to clip 7, Rob. Clip 7, if we can. This is a question about law enforcement. Donald Trump challenging Biden to name one law enforcement agency that actually supports him. Trump has all kinds of law enforcement agencies, sheriff's organizations, policemen's unions that are backing him. Here's clip 7.
He doesn't have any law support. Look, he has no law enforcement
that's
support.
Not true.
Almost
that's
nothing.
Look.
Oh, really? Who do you have? Name one group that supports you. Name one group that came out and supported you. Go ahead. Think. We have time.
We don't have time to do anything.
No, think
all right.
Name one law enforcement group that came out and supported you.
Gentlemen, I think I'm going to take back the moderator's role, and I want to get to another subject.
All right, there's Chris Wallace. What's he doing? He's bailing Joe Biden out of a hole. He's pulling his fat out of the fire. Donald Trump's asking him a perfectly legitimate question. Name one law enforcement agency that backs you, that's endorsed you. It is clear that Joe Biden has no answer to that question. So what does Chris Wallace do? He intervenes and changes the subject. This is part of what aggravated President Trump, and it ought to aggravate anybody who cares about a free and fair debate. Another question that Biden dodged all night long is whether he was going to pack the court if he's elected president. Well, Jake Tapper's talking with Kamala Harris after the debate. Clip number 8 asked Kamala Harris, the running mate of Joe Biden, the same question. Let's listen.
There are a number of Democrats in Washington, as you know, who are saying that if Judge Barrett is confirmed and if you and Joe Biden win and the Democrats take back the Senate, then there should be consideration of adding seats to the U.S. Supreme Court. Neither you nor Joe Biden are willing to give a straight answer as to whether or not you're willing to entertain that idea, but it's not some fringe idea. Democrats in Washington are talking about it. Chuck Schumer, the Democratic leader in the Senate, has said that he's not taking anything off the table. Is that an idea that you're willing to think about? I will respectfully note that you also declined to answer that question with me.
So what happened is there's a minute of space between Jake Tapper saying, is that something you're willing to think about? And his last comment, I will note that you refuse to answer that question. That was a whole minute of Kamala Harris tap dancing around the question, bloviating. It's full of hot air and sound and fury signifying nothing. I want to drop back to clip number 6. We've seen Donald Trump's position on racism. He condemns it unequivocally, condemns the KKK, condemns white supremacist groups, condemned neo-Nazis. I mean, those he named. He listed them. We condemn them. There's no place for that in America because we are founded on the truth that all of us are created equal, regardless of race, color, or creed. So now, and by the way, the Proud Boys came up last night, and they tried to tag Trump for supporting white supremacists because he said something about the Proud Boys. Stand back. He told them, look, stand back. Give us some space here. But it's being labeled, the Proud Boys, as a white supremacist group. Now, I don't know much about the Proud Boys. I know very little research. Jeff and I worked on it. We got a little bit of research on the Proud Boys. I know almost nothing about them. So I'm not going to say anything more than what I am going to tell you. But this is a group that's about half black or half minority. The Proud Boys, this white supremacist group, they're almost half minority. So how does that happen? How does a white supremacist group attract all of these minorities? Well, maybe they're not the white supremacists that they're being accused of being. Now, Patriot Prayer, headed by Joey Gibson, that's another group that's tagged as a white supremacist group. But the leader of Patriot Prayer, they often appear at the Portland rallies, his name is Joey Gibson. He's half Japanese. He's half Japanese. And he's leading the Patriot prayer group. So they've got black and brown faces that are marching with the Proud Boys. Hard to tag them as white supremacists. You know, one of the other leaders of the Proud Boys is Enrique Tarrio. He's from Cuba. He is Afro-Cuban. He's the leader of the Miami chapter of the Proud Boys. Now, what they're about is they used to call themselves Western chauvinists. In other words, they believe, as you and I believe, that Western culture, European culture, Western European culture, that is responsible for the founding of the United States of America, that it is a superior form of approach to public policy, nation building, than any other system ever devised. That's what Donald Trump believes. That's why he calls himself a nationalist. He believes that America, as I do, is the greatest nation in the history of the planet, and we need to preserve and protect what we have. So anyway, that is hard to ding these people as racist when they've got such a mix. In fact, the right-hand man of Patriot Prayer is a guy by the name of Tiny Tees. He's a 345-pound Samoan, and he proudly marches with the Patriot Prayer group, calls himself a brown brother for Donald Trump. All right, well, let's listen to what Joe Biden's take on minorities and African Americans is. Clip number 6. This is a highlight reel.
But I tell you, if you have a problem figuring out whether you're for me or Trump, then you ain't black.
It's a large, very identifiable Somali community. And if you ever come to the train station with me, you'll notice that I have great relationships with them because there's an awful lot of driving cabs.
You got the first sort of mainstream African American who is articulate and bright and clean and a nice-looking guy.
My state has the 8th largest black population in America.
Poor kids are just as bright and just as talented as white kids.
You also said that they want to put you all back in chains, speaking about Romney and Republicans.
They're going to put you all back in chains.
Have any regrets about the language you used?
Well, I would say those things again. Unlike the African-American community, with notable exceptions, the Latino community is an incredibly diverse community. Now, when I mean full diversity, unlike the African-American community and many other communities, you're from everywhere. But even Dr. King's assassination did not have the worldwide impact that George Floyd's death did.
I guess the best way to answer the question in a short amount of time, why is it that I get overwhelming support from the African-American community?
That's the question of the day right there. But Donald Trump apparently is the racist one. Now, Joe Biden apparently somewhere along the line maybe has converted to the religion of Islam. Listen carefully to clip number 9.
And you'll get to see it. And you'll get to see it. But let me just tell you.
You're going to get this win. And Joe Biden says, Inshallah. That's a Muslim expression. It means in the will of Allah, inshallah. So there is Joe Biden invoking the name of Allah on a presidential debate for who wants to be the next leader of the United States of America. All right, let's grab a couple of phone calls before we're done here. Let's go to Lonnie in Texas. Lonnie, what's on your mind? Talk to me.
Well, to add to the foolishness, Brian, I don't know if you heard last night, but Joe Biden accused Donald Trump not only of forest fires, tornadoes, global warming, but also hurricanes. The most powerful force on the face of the planet. Little bitty man has nothing to do with the formation of hurricanes, but apparently it's Republicans.
Yeah.
I love your program, and I'm just going to listen to you.
Okay, great, Lonnie. Thank you. You know, and a question about the forest fires in California, that place is still burning to the ground. And Donald Trump correctly said this is a matter of bad forestry management. Those forests are not being managed. They're not being stewarded. They're being neglected. They're being abandoned. So you get this fuel load, all this dry kindling on the forest floor. You get all these dead trees that are just waiting to go up like Roman candles. So Trump was exactly right. That's a matter of bad forest management. Global warming got absolutely nothing to do with it. Now let's go to Christian in Houston, Texas. Christian, welcome. You're on with Brian Fisher. What's on your mind?
Thank you, Brian, for taking my call.
Yes.
Brian, you know, I've been listening all morning. Something I haven't had mentioned is that Donald Trump, you know, people think the way he conducted himself was not right, but this is a person who discovered that people who voted for him, their ballots were thrown in the waste basket. So that alone can make anybody to be upset, don't you think?
Absolutely.
That's my question.
You know, Donald Trump's exactly right about the amount of voter fraud that's taking place. We see more stories every day. I mean, ballots being dumped in ditches, ballots being thrown into dumpsters, ballots that are being left in trays where nobody's monitoring them, nobody's minding the store, all kinds of potential, all kinds of actual voter fraud taking place. Let's go to Kevin in Pennsylvania. Kevin, welcome. What's on your mind? Talk to me.
Hi, good afternoon, Brian. How you doing, sir?
Hey, good.
I just want to make a quick comment. I don't know if you remember Mr. Biden making the comment about how Antifa is an idea and not an organization. Well, I recall a former president saying that ISIS was junior varsity.
That's a good point. That's a very, very good point. You know, and how do you neutralize an idea? I mean, Antifa is responsible for violence, especially in places like Portland and Seattle. Major responsibility, culpability for outright violence. You have to meet that with force. Anybody thinks you don't need to use force to stop violent movements like BLM and to stop these violent and Antifa. Anybody thinks you can stop that with just like kind words and cookies and milk has got their head in the clouds. All right, thank you. Let's go. Last call today. Let's go to Miller in Mississippi. Miller, if you can make this brief, I'd appreciate it. What's on your mind?
Brian, thank you for your program, man. Look.
Thank you.
Where is the common sense in the world today with all these people that we're dealing with? And one thing is being lost in the debate last night. Trump did exactly what he needed to do. He wanted to grab out some things from Biden that the press won't ask him about and he won't get questions about. And he's not really going to gain anybody. He's already got his base. He's just trying to destroy Biden's base. And I think that's what he did by bringing out some things last night about not funding the police, not taking a stance on Antifa and things like that. So he did what he had to do. People are just losing the big picture of it.
All right, Miller, listen, I appreciate it.
Program.
Okay, thank you very much. You know, and Miller's exactly right. You know, keeping the big picture in mind, what Donald Trump did is he flushed out Joe Biden and he pleased his base. We'll see you back here tomorrow.
The views and opinions expressed in this broadcast may not necessarily reflect those of the American